The Arameans were more than just another ancient people, they were perhaps the most influential cultural force that history almost forgot. While they didn't build massive pyramids or create legendary empires, they fundamentally shaped how the ancient world communicated and traded. The story begins with their mysterious origins. First mentioned in Assyrian texts around 1100 BC, the Arameans emerged as tribal groups that would revolutionize the ancient Near East. Interestingly, recent archaeological findings suggest they may have had connections to earlier Amorite populations, with some scholars pointing to cultural continuities in pottery styles and burial practices. When Tiglath-Pileser I complained about crossing the Euphrates 28 times to fight them, he was dealing with more than just raiders. Archaeological evidence shows the Arameans had developed sophisticated irrigation systems and were master metalworkers. Their bronze working techniques influenced artistic styles from Egypt to Persia. The Aramean kingdoms that emerged weren't just political entities, they were cultural melting pots. In Bidbayani, for instance, archaeologists have uncovered evidence of multicultural festivals where Aramean, Assyrian, and Phoenician traditions merged. The kingdom of Aram Damascus became so wealthy through trade that its market prices influenced economies as far as Egypt. What's particularly fascinating is how the Arameans turned defeat into triumph. When Tiglath-Pileser III conquered their territories using his carrot and stick approach, the Arameans didn't just survive, they thrived. Their language, Aramaic, became so dominant that even their conquerors had to learn it. By 700 BC, Aramaic was being used from the Mediterranean to India. The language's success wasn't just due to population movements. Aramaic introduced innovations that made it incredibly practical. Its script could be written quickly on leather and papyrus, unlike cuneiform, which required clay tablets. Merchants could now carry their records with them, revolutionizing ancient commerce. Recent archaeological discoveries have revealed that Aramaic was used in surprising places, from tax records in ancient Egypt to trading contracts found along the Silk Road in China. It was so widespread that Jesus himself would later speak Aramaic, not Hebrew, as his primary language. The Aramean influence extended beyond language. They were master architects who introduced new building techniques, including the use of ashlar masonry, carefully cut and placed rectangular blocks, that would later influence Greek architecture. Their artistic style, blending Mesopotamian and Syrian elements, created a distinctive aesthetic that influenced everything from pottery to monumental sculpture. Perhaps most intriguingly, the Arameans developed sophisticated legal codes that influenced later Middle Eastern law. Clay tablets discovered in Syria show they had complex systems for handling trade disputes, property rights, and even environmental regulations regarding water usage. The gradual disappearance of Aramean political independence didn't end their cultural impact. Their descendants continued to play crucial roles in later empires. During the Persian period, Aramean scribes essentially ran the imperial bureaucracy. Their cultural practices, especially their approach to trade and diplomacy, influenced societies from the Mediterranean to Central Asia. Today, modern Aramaic is still spoken by small communities in Syria, Iraq, and Turkey, making it one of the oldest continuously used languages in the world. These communities preserve traditions that can be traced back to the ancient Aramean kingdoms, offering living links to this fascinating civilization. The Aramean story teaches us something profound about historical influence. Sometimes the most powerful changes don't come from military might or monumental architecture, but from practical innovations that make life easier for ordinary people. Through their language and culture, the Arameans created connections that would shape the ancient world for centuries to come. This remarkable legacy continues to influence us today, from the alphabetic principles they helped spread to the diplomatic practices they pioneered. The Arameans remind us that true power often lies not in conquest, but in connection.